So I'm excited to talk about a topic that is very close to my heart, which is product delight. You probably have seen me already quite vocal about that because it's not only a passion, but it's also something that is very actionable. And I'm taking this as a mission to bring it to you. So for those who don't know me, I'm Nesrine. I had a chance to work on globally used and loved products from Skype to Spotify, Google Meet, and Google Chrome. But also I have a passion since maybe the start of my career, which is being on stage, speaking, and teaching. I carry this teaching thing from my research time. I did a PhD in my early days. And one day, I think a couple of years ago, I was on a very similar stage, and someone asked me the following question. Someone said, hey, since you've been an insider in these quite globally and successful products and companies, was there any trend, something in common you've seen building products like Skype, Spotify, Google Meet, and Chrome? Could you share? And honestly, I had no idea. Like, it came as a surprise, so I really saw the need to sit down and reflect. Like, there should be something in common. Why Skype, Spotify, Google Meet are so successful and also loved by users? And I came with the following conclusion. So after reflection, I came to the conclusion that yes, there is something in common in these companies, which is that companies like Google, Microsoft, and Spotify heavily invest in creating emotional connection between their products and their users. So that's what we're going to be talking about. And in order to explain what is emotional connection in tech, I usually start by asking people, what's your favorite product? The reason why I ask this question is because I love the variety of answer I get out of that. People would pick their favorite product for different reasons. Some would choose the best product based on the functionality part. Others may choose the best product based on the feeling they get out of using the product. We use product for two dimensions, for the functional reason that we get out of it, but also for the emotional part and the feeling that this product is honoring while using it. And I see that the best products on earth are those who manage to create experience and solutions that blend those two dimensions in the core experience, in the solution itself. And that's the essence of delight. So delight is about creating products that blend those two dimensions, and we're going to be talking about that, on how to do that in your product as well. So what does delight mean? And I have one theoretical slide for you here, just one, and then we're going to move to plenty of stories and examples. So delight is an emotion, and it's what we call secondary emotion, which means that it's a combination of two primary emotions. These emotions are joy and surprise. So if you want to feel delighted, you need to be in a moment where you are experiencing joy and surprise at the same time. Then you're delighted. So that's the only theoretical slide I have for you today. Now, how can we put that in action? How can we put that in tech, which is like the less emotional part in our life? Actually, I believe that delight relies on three main pillars. Those pillars are removing friction, anticipating needs, and exceeding expectations. So I'm going to share with you what each of these pillars mean through personal stories. Number one, removing users' frictions. So a couple of weeks ago, I was in Stockholm, and I get the chance to meet some of my ex-colleagues and friends from Skype and Spotify. So we went to a restaurant called Griffin's. It's not that known or famous. We had a great time, of course. It was a good food, good service. But there was one particular moment that I hated during that time. I don't think I was the only one. It's like when it was bill time. Because when you're with friends and people, or maybe colleagues, you're wondering, like, who's going to pay the bill? Are we going to split evenly? Who had wine? Who did not? And while I was into that mood and thinking of that kind of bad emotion, the waiter came. She placed a QR code on the table. All you have to do is scan the QR code, get the entire list of everything was ordered on that table, and you pay in the app. So sharing this story because it turns what was supposed to be an awkward emotional moment into almost an enjoyable and delightful payment experience. The second pillar is about anticipating need. Remember, there is this element of surprise and delight. And if you have to let's say, wait for your user to tell you exactly what they need from you, then you're not going to surprise them. You need to anticipate what they really need from you so they get the aha moment. So what does it mean? The second story I have for you is that a couple of months ago, I had a family trip to Singapore with my family. And as soon as I arrived there, I realized that my French mobile plan does not work in Singapore. I had to figure out a way to get ways to communicate, either having a local SIM or pay expensive roaming fees. And that was the moment that I realized that on my Revolut app, there is an option to get eSIM. Literally 2 clicks. You go to eSIM tab and you pay. I mean, you don't even have to pay. It's like you click on Pay 7 Years. This is a real screenshot I took during that time. And the reason I'm sharing this story, because I believe that Revolut, I don't even think that there is a Revolut user asking Revolut, we want to have an eSIM, because they don't necessarily expect that from a bank app. However, Revolut know that most of their users are expat, they are travelers, and some of their need could be needing an eSIM. So that's the essence of anticipating need. Third pillar. Again, we want to bring this joy combined with surprise, so you need to go beyond. It's not about meeting expectation. If you meet expectation, you get satisfied users. We want emotionally connected users, and that's why you need to go beyond. And I have a third story for that. The story is also another personal story. I was about to take my train from Paris to London on Eurostar, and I was late, so I was a bit stressed. So I ordered an Uber. It happens that the Uber was on the way, but suddenly the driver canceled. I saw that the driver canceled, so I started to stress. I forgot about my app. It happens that the taxi driver passed in front of me. I jumped into that, and I thought I was saved. I was saved. At least I made it on time for the train station. But as soon as I got on board on the train, I realized that actually Uber smartly assigned me a new driver who actually came to my place, like after the first one canceled. So the driver came, he charged me waiting time and charged me the entire trip that I didn't take. I was pissed off, and I was like prepared psychologically for all this long email that I'm gonna send to the support saying like, yeah, but at the same time you canceled. And you know what? It was literally 2 clicks. Ask for a refund, and it turned a 35-euro trip to 0. Literally. Again, this is going beyond. This is exceeding expectation. At that time, my expectation was about, okay, I need to write this request with all the explanation, and suddenly I don't have to. So these are the 3 pillars. Now, how can you put these pillars in action? How can you put them in your products? Actually, I worked on most of the product I've been working on, helping, building, etc., comes from the B2C world. So what I did a couple of months ago, I started interviewing people from different industries, software, hardware, tech industries like Snowflake, GitHub, Alexa, even like from the Dyson, and so in different industries. The idea was to gather what makes these successful products so successful. How do they interpret the emotional connection in their industry and their words? And I came with the delight model. So the delight model is something I was first obsessed about making it actionable, but also applicable for all industries and all products. So what does it mean? It means that the very first thing you have to do is to start by identifying what motivates your users. So now that I'm coaching a lot of organization and company, I see that, of course, in order to start a new feature or product, people are really good at segmenting their users. They go to the persona style, but most times they would do either demographic segmentation, which means that who are my users from a gender, a location, language, style, or they at best do behavioral segmentation, which means what are they doing, what feature are they using, etc. And the very best one that I've seen working best in action is the motivational segmentation, which is the why. Because again, it might sound surprising, but your users are using your product for different reasons. And it's really important to nail and identify these reasons and these motivators. So let's do a quick case study here all together. So let's take Spotify as a well-known products and try to identify what are the motivators of the Spotify users. There are 2 types, again, of motivators. There are the functional motivators, Like, I want to listen to music, I want to send an SMS, I want to book a flight. And there are also the emotional motivators, how users want to feel while using the product. And here's the thing. Among the functional motivator, you can say something like, I want to enjoy high-quality music. I want to search for a specific track or a specific album or a podcast. Or sometime I go to Spotify, I have no idea what I want to listen to, just inspire me. I'm looking to get inspired. These are functional motivators. On the other side, I might go to Spotify because I feel lonely, or I want to have some nostalgia, I want to change my mood, I want to feel immersed, I want to self-express myself, I want to feel connected, I want to feel part of something. These are very valid emotional motivators. Imagine if we ignore all the emotional motivators, how would Spotify would look like? You will suddenly start not to love it. Okay, so the very first step of the delight model is to identify these. Really important to get it as a starting point. Why? Because I guess most of you are familiar with this double diamond framework. So double diamond framework operates into the opportunity space and the solution space. And it's all about going wide while identifying opportunities and then selecting the right one, and then going wide in the solutioning space and selecting and prioritizing the right one. I just tweaked it a little bit to say that your starting point is the motivators. If you identify one motivators of your users, try to identify what's the right opportunity to solve for that. And then you do the same for solutioning. So what we usually do, and I did that a lot with my teams, is of course we sit in rooms, we try to do brainwriting, we try to identify ideas that could delight out of those motivators. And by the way, I rarely ever had a team saying we don't know how to generate ideas. It's usually the opposite. Like, we have plenty of ideas, we don't know how to put them in practice. But the question is usually like, okay, how can we make them delightful? How can we make sure that there's delight into them? And so I want to share with you a few delighters, like what I call delighters. The list could be long, but I want to share a few just to inspire you. Maybe you can take them. The number one is, of course, the most powerful one is personalizations. Like, the more personalized the product is, the more emotionally connecting it is for the product. That's why Starbucks struggled to write your weird name on a cab, because we don't want to be called number 20, your coffee is ready. That doesn't ring a bell. And it's not only about the name, it's about our taste, our preferences. And that's why features like Discover Weekly, Netflix recommendation are so successful. Number two could be celebration. So this is very much used in some of the most successful products, of course, but it should be there for a reason. It's not a reason for adding confetti just for nothing, but it should be celebrating a milestone or celebrating user feeling. I want to share this story with you because I'm an Airbnb user, both from a guest perspective, but also as a host. So I have a small place, I put for rent on Airbnb, and I have a goal. I have a very cherished goal, which is I want to keep my superhost tag. And so, of course, I work hard to get this superhost badge. And Airbnb reassess every 3 months whether you can remain superhost or not, depending on the reviews and the experience, etc. And every 3 months, when I open the app and I'm renewed as a superhost, the app turns into confetti. And I feel like the app is recognizing the effort that I was putting into that and cherishing and celebrating the moment with me. Number 3, which could be funny enough because I played a lot with that, is seasonality. When I worked for Google Meet, the very first feature we introduced back then was background replace. Background replace as a static image. But then we wanted to be delightful on a continuous way. And so we started introducing what we call seasonal background. So we played with events like Diwali in this case, Christmas, Ramadan, Easter, even Olympic Games when it was Olympic game time. And those opportunities are key because they engage with users. Users love them. They adopt the feature even more. And we see that it actually impacts the adoption of the entire product also over time. And the number one and the last that I want to share with you here today is humanization. It's by far my favorite, really my favorite. What it means? It means ask yourself the following question. If my product was a human, not a tech, we're back in time, how would the experience would be better? How would the experience be better if the product was a human? I'm going to explain with this example because you're now wondering why I'm having this Dyson robot on the screen. I had a chance to talk with Andy Nesling. He used to be the VP of product at Dyson. And I told him how the hell I love my vacuum cleaner. Like, it's a vacuum cleaner. How can I have this emotional connection with it? I show it to my friend. Every time I have a guest, I'm so proud showing it. And then he said, you know what, Nesrine? We never compare our vacuum cleaner to our competitors. We don't compare to Bosch or Electrolux or whatever other. We compare them to, what if you hire a real person to clean your house? How would that be better? Because if you hire someone to clean your house, you will probably ask that person to start with a certain room or clean in a certain way. And that raises the bar in humanizing the product. And so, for example, they get inspired to add recommendation into the product. And actually, that's exactly how we did at Google Meet. When I worked for Google Meet, we rarely or almost never, ever compared Google Meet to Teams or Zoom or whatever other product. We compared, and we were obsessed about comparing Google Meet to what if this meeting is happening live in a meeting room, if we were all sitting together. That was our main competitor. And so by doing so, we set the bar higher. We humanized the product, and we came up with features like raise hand or emoji reactions. Now they seem like so evident to have them in the product, but that's how they were born. Okay, so I told you the list could be longer, and I actually created the lighter wheel that I actually published also on one of my blog posts, so you can have more detail about them. It's all about inspiring you for getting this into your product as well. So now comes the question, how do I prioritize among those delighters or those great ideas? How can I know which one will have the right impact versus the others? And so I created another tool that I'm calling the Delight Grid. And I would love to use the following minutes trying to explain how it works. So here's the Delight Grid. The Delight Grid is a simple table where all you have to do is to list the motivators we just spoke about earlier. Remember, we have functional motivators that you place vertically, and then you have the emotional motivators that you place horizontally. So you might end up having a much bigger table, and that's better for you. But the idea is that's the foundation. You put your users' motivators in the table. Why do we do that? Because you will take your ideas, all the solutions that you came up with as ideas, and place them in the grid. If the ideas are only solving for functional motivators, then they belong to what I call the low delight. This is a category that I call low delight. If your idea or feature is only solving for an emotional motivators, they belong to the feature that I call surface delight. If you happen to have features that is solving for both emotional motivators and functional motivators, you're in that sweet spot that I call the deep delight. I want to do another quick exercise because we always get things better with exercise and examples. Let's go back to the Spotify case. I get a chance to work on these very well-known, let's say, features in Spotify. The first one is search by lyric. You know what? When you don't have the exact title of the track, and or something with a mic, anyway. So and you only remember a few words. That's when we improved search there. The second is, of course, Wrapped. Everyone knows Wrapped, like the end of year retrospective that everybody loves because they want to show how cool they are. And of course, Discover Weekly. This is the personalized playlist that you get on a weekly basis. Let's do that in a Delight Grid. So I previously showed you the motivators, some of the motivators. It could be a much bigger one. So let's place the feature in the grid. A feature like search by lyric would be more into the low delight category because it improves very well the search for an audio content. There is not necessarily an emotional connection there. A feature like Wrapped, I think it's hard to disagree that there is a functional side there. It's mostly emotional, so it's definitely a surface delight. And funny enough, I gave this very simple, same story and presentation to Spotify 3 weeks ago. I wanted to challenge them whether they find a different way of thinking about it. So we agreed on this grid with them as well. And the third feature that I mentioned, which is Discover Weekly, would be more into the deep delight category because, yes, It is helping you to discover new content, but also it's so personalized and it helps you to feel that much more immersed into the product. And of course, we can do that with a much, much bigger backlog or a much longer roadmap, but you get the sense. And for me, I want to insist on that. There are two benefits of the delight grid. One is, of course, categorizing, knowing which one is low delight, surface delight, deep delight, but there is another one, which is we connect features to the real motivators of the users. I run some workshops and training with organizations, and sometimes we end up having 2, 3 post-its. We don't know how to put them in the grid because we don't find the right motivator for them. And I say, like, if there are no motivators for them, maybe they just don't need to be there because users are not motivated for having them. So it is a great eyes-opening to see that this feature has to be in the product because users are motivated to have them. Now you should be wondering how to make the equilibrium between low delight versus surface delight and deep delight, and I want to come to this recommendation, what I call the 50-40-10 rule. So the 50-40-10 rule, or maybe better to call it recommendation, is that the best product I've seen on earth, the best roadmap I've seen on earth, are those who manage to get the bouquet. I'm not here to say that you only need to work on surface delight and deep delight. Of course, we need to work on the 3 types of delight on a continuous way, meaning that ideally, your roadmap should look like 50% of low delight. Yes, it has to function. It has to function very well. Second, 40% should go to deep delight, which is, again, functional, but with emotion inside the experience. And of course, 10%. Why not 10%? For this joyful moment, for this small smile. Like the other day, it was my birthday, and my Apple Watch popped up with balloons, and it says, like, happy birthday, Nesrine. Totally surface delight, but why not? It brings the brand and the personality to the product. All right, so we've been talking about delight in action, how you can put that, how you can start. But I want to insist on one fundamental element. Delight is a mindset. Before it is a tool or a framework or a model, it is a mindset. And I've seen it in action in most of the company I've been working on it as pillars, as like principles. Like at Google, we used to have a product principle called product delight. When I interviewed people from Dropbox, I remember someone said, hey, but we have a pillar called cupcakes. And when I investigated, I realized that cupcake is exactly about bringing that smile to the users. Same for Snowflake. They have something called superhero, which is about they want their users to feel superheroes. So again, this is about making sure that it's part of the culture of the organization, because it's not a one-off. If it's a one-off, it will make a smile once, and then it will not build the brand that you're looking for. And by the way, when I worked as a product leader and manager on companies like Skype and Spotify and Google, there have been a lot of habits. Like we used to have these hack days habit. And I love them because they install that as a routine of innovation, of thinking outside of the box. So now what I help organizations doing is we do delight days, which is quite just similar, but we do it with the delight principle, with the delight mindset. And we try to go in a playful way. We build delightful features. We celebrate them toward the end of the day. And it's always been super fun. OK, so I spent almost 15 years of my career building product. But 2 years ago, I decided to leave Google with a mission, is to demystify delight. Because every time I talk to a leader or a founder, they all agree that we should delight our users. But they just don't know how. So I wanted to demystify and make it actionable. And I quickly realized that it should be much bigger than talks and workshops and training. So I started writing a book about it. And I'm super excited to say that the book is now available. It's been available on Amazon for the last 3 weeks. And lucky for you, I also brought some copies. So if you want to have it for a discounted price, and I'm happy to sign it for you as well, just come upstairs, and I will be happy to do that for you. With that, I want you to finish with 3 main takeaways. I mean, of course, you already have your own takeaways, your own insights and moments from today's talk. But if you need to remember 3 key things, I want you to remember that delight is not a nice to have. Not anymore. We live in a crowded market. If you want to stand out, if you want to be remembered, if you want your user to love your product, then it becomes a must-have. The second thing, delight is not a buzzword anymore, at least not now. You don't have an excuse. There is a model, there is tools, there is delight grid, there is so many actionable items that you can take and apply into your product. So it is actionable. And third, delight is a culture. Again, it's not just about sprinkling joy on top of utility. It's about creating an entire experience where emotions are core part of the experience. With that, I'm getting to the end of my presentation. And of course, I'm really happy to connect with you if you want to reach out on LinkedIn. I love doing that. You also have my email if you want to send me an email. This is a QR code for the slides if you want to have them as well. I also write regularly about delight. I have a newsletter that I call Delight Tips. And funny enough, as soon as I started talking about delight, a lot of people start sharing their delight stories with me, like personal or professional. So sometimes I share them if people are, of course, happy with that. And yeah, thank you.